I believe. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I will call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. I have a couple of public comments, and then I will open it up to anyone else who does. Relatively new situation. Allison reached out to us. She's going to be stepping down from the committee. Is just very, very busy and doesn't feel that she's going to have the time to commit to the committee. So we will be searching for a Dover resident committee member. Okay, so we'll put that out, find any interested parties and make a recommendation. Julia with the grin ear to ear, and make a recommendation to the select board for the open committee seat. So we will definitely keep you notified when that happens. It will go in the newspaper, it'll go out on an email. It will also be on discoverdover.com and probably doververmont.com. So we'll put it out as many places as we possibly can. If you don't see it, please call me, and I will make sure that you have the information. Another brief update are a number of our dog waste stations have been installed. They look absolutely great. I took a walk on the paved section of the Valley Trail today and saw 2 of the units being utilized just today. So good on us for getting them out there and giving people a place to throw away the poo. Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say that's a fabulous job, because that's what was happening over to us at Hogback. We'd have a sign kiosk with trail map and etiquette and all that stuff. And ultimately there would be bags of poop at the kiosk. It's like, thanks for bringing that to us, sort of. So I think it's a fabulous job from the Dover end.
Thank you. Right now there's one at the bottom at the trailhead to the entrance of Horace Hill. There is one at the beginning of the paved section of the trail on the north end in the Dots parking lot. There is one in between the church and town office down where we are. And then we have some other ones to go in at the town forest, as well as the trailhead or parking lot at Crosstown Road. Okay, so those are in. The solar lights are not on there yet. We're still working on how to get those hooked up, but there soon will be solar lights for anybody who's walking those doggos at night to throw the poo away. All right. Any questions on those, let me know. Happy to help. And then the last thing is I was just asked to make a reminder that there is a meeting on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. in person at the Dover Town Office, as well as via Zoom, between the Dover Select Board, Southern Vermont Trails Association, and the United States Forest Service. That will be happening this Thursday, 2 p.m. I believe there's an agenda and Zoom link and whatnot on the website, doververmont.com, under meetings, because it is a warned meeting with the Dover Select Board. Any other public comments? Really hoping Tripp shows up at some point, because I feel like a good chunk of this conversation is supposed to include him, as same with Mr. Garber, but we will push along. No other public comments. Patricia.
All right, finding me on mute. It's not really a comment, but like when something, I would have loved to have gone to that meeting. Is there any way that we could all know sooner when meetings like that are made? Or is this like a last minute, the 2 o'clock meeting?
It's a meeting like that is just a publicly warned meeting with the select board. So legally it needs to be announced 2 days in advance. The agenda, I think, for the meeting came out on Friday. What I can do is we can provide Jeanette with your email and have you added to the email list to get updates about when meetings are warned. And that's about as soon as you're going to hear about them, is when she emails the warning.
All right, I could probably go online and figure out how to get on.
Well, that's
list.
the other part, right? So if you go to doververmont.com, and I don't remember all of the titles on the top, but there's one that's the second one from the left. Shannon, are you pulling it up? What's it say?
Sorry, I can only look at one part at one time.
No, I got you.
I can figure it out separate too.
So if you go to local government and down to meetings and agendas and minutes, the best thing to do is to check that out every once in a while and just read the select board minutes, because they had mentioned scheduling this meeting at their last time. So like I read all of our surrounding towns too that way, but that's the best way. But Jeanette can add you to a list if you want to get all of the meeting warnings.
Okay, thank you.
I will get her your email. Okay. Any other public comments? Kristen?
Is that meeting recorded?
Yes. All of the select board meetings, the Warren meetings are recorded.
Thank you.
And so on that same page, you can actually watch any meeting. You can watch our Trails and Rec meetings. You can watch Planning Commission meetings. You can watch select board meetings. Any of these publicly warned meetings are recorded and available after the fact. We also have a lovely Town of Dover, Vermont YouTube page where all of these videos live as well. You can also catch them there. Okay. Perfect. All right. Any additions or changes to the agenda tonight? No. Okay. So we will move along. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th meeting.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of the June 14th meeting.
Kristen was here. Patricia was here. Sarah was here. Mike was not here. Was Matt here?
Yep.
Matt was here. Matt was here. All right. So I have a motion from Kristen, a second from
A
Patricia.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go, Matt. No, Mike, Patricia, Sarah, and Kristen are all set. I'm assuming that's what Sarah wanted. Okay. Moving. Oh, there she is. Thank you, Sarah. Moving right along. We have made, or I made, an update to the Dover Trails and Recreation Committee charge. So those are our rules that govern the structure and rules of our committee. So I took your guys' thoughts back to our select board and said, hey, they want to do both a proxy or an alternate, which the select board was fine with. And let me just text Trip Morse to make sure he's going to be here on time. And then I will read you what it is that I wrote. Sorry, folks. And Matt, do you know if Mike was planning on joining us tonight, or can you maybe text him? He was supposed to be here for part of the Hathaway Trail conversation.
Yeah, I'll shoot him a message now.
You're the best. Thank you. Okay, so this is what I wrote into the committee charge, and if we agree to it, then we'll call it good and move forward with these rules in place. I'll send everybody an updated. Well, you have the updated copy in front of you. Should a group or organization's representative not be available to attend the monthly meeting, a proxy can be sent in their place with the ability to cast a vote on behalf of the group organization. So that should say a proxy / alternate, because I didn't update that. So a proxy / alternate can be sent in their place. In order for the proxy alternate representation to be established, notice in writing of the proxy alternate must be provided to the moderator at least 12 hours in advance of the meeting. Proxy alternate representation should be used only as necessary. Committee members who are appointed to their seats by the Dover Select Board are expected to attend a minimum of 70% of the yearly meetings. Failure to maintain consistent attendance could result in a permanent seat appointment change. Please note, proxy or alternate representation is allowable only to groups, organizations who hold an open seat on the committee. Proxy representation is not allowable to for any individual seat held seat, i.e. business owner or Dover resident. So that being said, the Stump Jumper seat, the Southern Vermont Trails Association seat, the Select Board seat, and the Mount Snow seat are the organization seats that are eligible to submit a proxy and or alternate to a meeting to help make quorum. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So if I add the word alternate after everywhere that it only says proxy, are we happy with that? I've forgotten a couple of places. Awesome. Patricia?
So I'm on the committee as a business owner. Do I need to, if I want a proxy, get another business owner?
No. So it doesn't apply to business owners or individuals. So the Dover residents and the business owners don't have the ability to provide proxy.
Okay.
This is more, the idea was, where Matt comes from a much larger organization where he's typically taking the things we talk about and then discussing them with his group, or that's at least the hope. So someone from his organization would have the background knowledge to then step into that spot and be able to cast a vote. Our concern with a business owner or resident seat is that the proxy may not have that background information or been a part of any of the conversations leading up to that point. So as of right now, we decided to keep that specific to the organizations that are a part of the committee. Does that make sense? Perfect. Any other questions on that? So just to be clear, the select board did say you can either provide a proxy, which is the meeting, or you can provide the name of that alternate. I know Stump Jumpers, you were looking to go in that direction. So if Matt or some, the head of your organization wants to email me with, who it is they would like to see as alternate committee seat, we keep that on record as your meeting alternate. Okay. So I will update the charge with a few more alternates words in there and get that back out to you guys. Okay. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and move forward as if those are the rules we will be using going forward. Okay. So cooking on right along. So we are going to have Mike talk to us a little bit about his thoughts on rejuvenating the Ridge Race. Okay. Mike, give us a little bit of a historical background and then just some thoughts on where you're headed with it right now.
Sure.
We keep in mind we have 10 minutes set aside.
Yep,
So give
no
us
worries,
a couple of minutes and we'll go to questions.
Yeah, no worries. I've been here a fairly long time. My dad was friends with Jim McGovern at the Hermitage, and that's where I started. And in the mid 80s, part of the stuff we did, because I was involved in actually building the Ridge Trail, was we created, I was just a little tiny cog. But McGovern and Joe Specht and that ran the cross country center there, created an event that was a ridge race. It was a ridge trail event that started at the Hermitage and went over to Mount Snow and up Sunbrook and across the Ridge Trail and then down the Haystack ski area back to the Hermitage. So there was a huge party, a huge event. It ran for many years, actually. I participated in it a bunch of times, but ultimately I'm trying to bring that back as an event that would promote the area, as well as, all of the sort of backcountry skiing sort of stuff that we're promoting through SoVT and just the two areas. It's a Wilmington, Dover, it's a regional event. What separates this from any of the other weirdo cross-country events that you might be competing with in March or so is the elevation gain. It's ridiculous, but you're going to do, I can't remember, 1,500 to 2,000 feet of vertical. I propose to run it counterclockwise, because if you run it clockwise, excuse me, all the fitness nords and all the fitness weirdos have an edge, because what happens is you zoom up Haystack and you zoom across the ridge, and then when you ski down through the woods, it's not really that zoomy. Whereas if I do it counterclockwise, you know, I climb up to the ridge and I go across the ridge. Now I need to be able to ski down Haystack on my little toothpicks or Nordic skis or whichever I choose. I'd investigated this concept with the Forest Service a few years back, so there's a real groundwork. Originally, I wanted to do skiing, you know, but it's not that long a loop. I mean, it might be 10 miles at most. So I was going to do snowshoes as well, kind of akin to one of the super ridiculous mountain bike events, the most popular around in Vermont, is this 50-mile mountain bike run up at Ascutney that they do on bicycles and, believe this, on foot. So, like, you know, there are runners that do the 50 miles, you know, do this. So with this ridge race, skis, snowshoes, and at the time I asked about fat bikes, but the Forest Service didn't have a policy on fat bikes right away, but they should have moved past that, because they were okay with grooming, you know, the loop, you know, the whole circle. They were interested in allowing that to be groomed, so they might be able to allow fat bikes. But if they don't right away, well, you know, we'll get them next. But ultimately, this could be a signature event for Dover in the area and really promote a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do. People that are on board, possibly it's Vermont, or excuse me, possibly Dover, but certainly Rotary and the Lions Club are on board with trying to help support this event. In our preliminary discussions, the first aid people from Mount Snow were on board with supporting this event in terms of safety. And so as far as the Forest Service is concerned, or was concerned, the only thing stopping us was the bike, including the bicycle. Sort of trying to propose this to as an event, not necessarily, you know, our other, I don't know how it is, our it's not a trail or an activity or a thing. It would be an event. And the question goes to, you know, how much Dover might be interested in supporting it. Oh, in the meantime, you know, I've compiled a list of the property owners, because the Forest Service will certainly want to know. I know one of the significant ones has reached out to me about this concept, because ultimately what happens is some of these property owners have land that reaches back to the Forest Service, but all of this uphill stuff would utilize what's called Shays Run, a former permitted cross-country trail that goes up to the Sunbrook area from the far side of Coldbrook Brook. Right? That's pretty much it. Anybody?
Sorry. So
Questions?
the reason I asked Mike to come and talk about
Eric just froze himself.
He did. This is
While
my
he's frozen, can I have just one quick question? It seems like it's a winter event, right? So that's
Yeah.
my question.
Winter, spring. What's kind of
He
handy
froze.
about this is that I've been working on the Ridge Trail for 15 plus years, and one of the big hangups, besides being the hermitage and the damage they did to the trail on their end, and legal stuff and blah blah blah, and now to try to figure out how to get across the swamp, none of this matters. none of this matters because it's a sort of a March event when there's a ton of snow up there. I don't know if some of you people remember, but Mount Snow actually kind of owned Haystack for a brief period or used it. And so they used to run grooming machines across there. Part of all the stuff that we're considering involves, hiking and treads. Well, in March, let me tell you, all those little stupid pine trees that are like in the way, and I don't know if I should remove it. They're under the snow. They are like, so a winter event is possible whether you have a bridge or not, because the snow is so high up there, you'd never know there was a bridge there.
Gotcha. Mike, thank you. Any other questions for Mike on this? Basically, what I'd like to see from here, I just wanted to provide some support to Mike to get the event going. This is not something that would be coming through the process docs, as it's not creation of a new trail, it's an event. So we'd get through the event documentation that we have here in town. And Mike knows that needs to be at least 6 months in advance of any new event. So would stay right on top of that. But I also just wanted to make sure that, we kind of helped with any contacts we could with Forest Service and landowners and things like that, so that people know that the town of Dover is in support of the event. Okay, so does anybody have any additional questions or anything on this? Kristen and then Sarah. Kristen?
Mike, in the past, how many people would take part in this event?
Hard to remember because I was young and you're just kind of clueless. But I know like Sarah's husband participated in it, so the idea again is there's seems to be a climate of newer endurance athletes and certainly this growth in the backcountry skiing thing. It's certainly again depending on the snowshoers and the skiers, and if we can add the bikers, could be between 100 to 200 people. But the idea is they come here to stay and visit and eat and do all that. Oh, look, that's the crazy thing down at Mount Snow or down in Dover.
Sarah, you had a question. Sorry, I'm just trying to move us along because we do have to get.
Yes.
Yep.
I was shouting for my husband to come so he could tell me how many people used to do the race. I would encourage Mike to do a written narrative.
Mhm.
Because that can be presented to the select board. That can also be
30, something like that.
okay, he said under 50 people did the race, but that was just skiing. But have a written narrative.
Mhm.
So that we can share that around, get feedback on it, refine it over time, and then we're working from a common document.
Hey, Eric, this is Paul. I have a comment also.
Sure, Paul.
So Mike, Paul Fisher here. The fire department has a search and rescue team,
Mhm.
supports backcountry services in that area. It'd be good to include us. If you want, when the time's right, let me know. I'll put you in touch with the right person to coordinate that.
Terrific. One of the fellows that was instrumental in the first time we thought about this concept is that guy Mike from Rescue. I can't think of his name.
Porter.
Yes. So we'll be in touch.
So that's Mount Snow Rescue.
Okay.
The
Okay.
search and rescue team that's part of the fire department's a separate group. We
Sure,
work with
sure.
Porter and Mount Snow Rescue, but I'm sure
Yep.
we'll like to get involved too. We'll help out.
Great. That's fabulous.
Awesome. So Mike, you follow those marching orders, get the written doc together. And then I think a good step for us, Mike, is to take a look at those letters that you had sent me for the landowners, and maybe just get those out with, our signatures on them to say, hey, we want to get this thing moving. And then,
Yep.
just to make sure that we have the support of those landowners to make sure that we're not doing.
Well, that's
this
key.
or
That's
not.
key. That's
right?
key. Yep.
So we'll get-
Including as it is also like Tim Shannon and the Hermitage Haystack Ski Club.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely. Yep. So we will definitely get them looped in, but Mike, you and I put our heads together on those letters, and we'll get those confirmed and out the door. Okay.
Yeah. See if you want to add to those letters or what you want to do, because I know they've reached out to, or at least one party has reached out to me right away.
Gotcha. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Anybody who has questions on that in the meantime, reach out to me or Mike. We're happy to answer questions for you. Okay. All right, moving right along. We are going to move to item 6, which is the Route 100 Recreation Area Proposal Review and Recommendations. I provided the document, well, all the documents to you guys on Friday. All of that work, on those documents and the proposal was done by local resident and interested party, Trip Morse. He submitted, the initial questionnaire, has been working, pretty close verbally with me on it, and then got all of the documentation together in terms of work plan and budget. So we're looking for questions or thoughts or anything from the committee to start. Trip, did you have anything you wanted to briefly say before we get into questions?
No, sorry. I thought I was supposed to be on close to 7. So I fed the dogs, shooed the cats, and did all the stuff I normally do at night, and
Gotcha.
poured a beverage. So I would tell you that those of you that don't know me, this was nothing I planned on getting involved in 2.5 months ago. And I was just trying to find a place to play pickleball outside. And then, when I talked to Rich Kaplan, again, those that don't know me, my family's been up here since 1933, and I've been up here since I was a kid. There has never really been a place for Dover residents of all ages to recreate together in the summertime and the springtime and the early fall. So it hit me and I just started going, but this thing has grown and morphed, and I've gotten local businesses, some of my clients and others involved, and I don't have all the answers. I would tell you that the concept itself, I think it's great. I've spent a ton of time, I certainly didn't know what Gaga Ball or Can Jam was a month and a half ago. But there's just such a desire to do something on Route 100 to, number one, aesthetically improve driving up and down, which is, really some tough looking areas. And number two, find the communities of the older people and the moms and the businesses really have latched on. And, I've had so many great suggestions and people wanting to get involved. So I'm just going through the process. This is all new to me. So all your questions are good questions.
Okay, Mike Purcell.
Oh, unmute. Okay. I was curious, do you think that in your happy layout there with all the different activities that you might consider one of these modular pump track sort of affairs? And what I mean by that, for those that aren't familiar, is often a lot of us, like I did at the elementary school, we build these pump tracks out of dirt. But I've seen where ski areas at their bases have these modular systems that are good for bicycles, skateboards, inline skates, as well as scooters, to provide some, sort of uniform little happy rolling system in a circle that people can enjoy, that's not dirt. So I'm just adding, I'm wondering if we can add that to sort of one of these considerations, this modular pump track affair that could be moved to any location, frankly. You could move it, you could probably set this up in the town park. But this, I'm just curious if that might be accommodated to provide a sort of rolling activity for the kids while the parents are playing volleyball, etc.
Mike, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, I had not heard of pump track either, just to be clear. But it was mentioned by several parents. And I'll address it like this. I do see this park morphing and changing as time goes on. I did check on anything motorized as well as skateboard parks, and they wouldn't be covered under the town's insurance policy. Now, bicycles would be covered. So in theory, you know, we could do a pump track at some point in time, and there's a swath of land. Do you guys all have the kind of design in front of you or near you?
Mhm.
So if you look at the swath of land that is nearest 171, that is all open space, open grass space. And, you know, again, these aren't decisions that I'm making unilaterally. I would like to have a committee, a park committee that addresses these things. And I'm not ruling it out by any stretch. I will tell you that skateboard parks are an absolute off the chart for the insurance carriers. You have to go to what's called an excess. I'm an insurance agent, Mike, if you didn't know. So you have to go to an excess lines carrier to get another policy to cover that. Whether the town wants to pay that expense or not, you know, completely up to them. Same thing with motorized sports. So
And I think realistically,
under,
oh, sorry, Trip. One second. So I
Yep.
think realistically, you know, we'd be interested more in phases of this project as opposed to kind of plopping everything all at once. So I feel like a pump track, you know, is something that could be discussed later on down the road should the project go to move forward. Mike, hang on just a second
Yep,
because I have
yep.
other people ahead of you. But is that okay to kind of table that piece of it for now?
Absolutely. I think this is going to be trial and error. A lot of the activities that are in there may never be used. They may say, "Oh, I'm wasting time, energy, and money there. Let's look at other activities."
Gotcha. Mike, I do have you. I'm going to go to Sarah because she was first, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Sarah?
Thank you. I hear what you're saying, Trip, about we don't know if some of these things will be used or not. I would really like to see this project go forward in 3 to 5 phases rather than 2. Break it down more. We know the pickleball is going to be sort of a high interest activity. So maybe we aim right for pickleball to start and some minimal landscaping to get rid of anything, frankly, anything that's hazardous. Like you said, there's dead trees there and stuff. So get rid of the worst of it. And start phasing in things as we go forward. The price tag is basically, what does that come out to, Mike or Eric, about 10% of our,
Yeah,
of what we
more.
have.
It's a little more than 10% of what we currently.
Right. So I'd like to see, I'd very much like to see us do this. I'd like to see us do it in a little bit more of a rolling fashion. And then I think we would address Mike's concern about, we may find that pump track is something that's more interesting than badminton, for example.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure, but I would like to see, I would be in favor of this over a longer time period of construction rather than over basically a 12-month period.
Yeah. So Sarah, let me address that to a degree. Your comparison of pump track and badminton is 30 by 60 feet. Mike needs a much bigger space.
That was just example, Trip. That wasn't like a
Yeah.
1-for-1. That was just an example.
So the pickleball is something that's going to take longer for a number of reasons. Number one, the excavation of the old hard courts that are there, then to get concrete poured, and then to put down new things. My thoughts were, quite honestly, that things like volleyball, which don't take a lot of time, and we've already had a commitment from the volleyball leagues that are playing at Sitzmark to come over immediately, but those can also be turned into several other activities on that space. The low rent, if you will, things like horseshoes, spike ball and things like that, is purchasing equipment to get all ages out to the park in the early stages, just so everybody gets a chance to come out. Picnic tables, benches and things like that are going to be needed regardless of what we do over time. So I'm not opposed to spreading the phases out But, and I'll give you for instance, because, you know, I don't know how much in the weeds you guys want me to get into, but the court surfaces and the actual paving for asphalt for the basketball and tennis, and then the concrete for the other, the timing has to, you know, come together. I don't see the courts being laid down for either of those until late fall at the earliest, depending on when the concrete guy can get out and do the pickleball and the asphalt guy can come out and do the tennis and basketball. I felt it was important to put some games out like Gaga Ball. And is there anybody there before I mentioned Gaga Ball that knew what it was? Oh, you did, Sarah?
I
go
substituted
ahead.
in the elementary school.
So I went to
I'm
Wendy Johnson
exposed.
and asked her to ask the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders what's the #1 game that they would go to mom and dad and say, hey, I want to go to the park and play this. Overwhelmingly, it was Gaga Ball. So
Yeah, it's in the it's in the.
but
the
I mean, games like pool and things like I didn't hear you.
No, I was just saying it's mentioned in the Weston and Sampson report as well, which is why a bunch of us know what it is prior to this conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I have some other stuff. Mike and then Kristen.
Just real clear, I just want to, when I mention that, I want to differentiate between the pump track that is built at the school that's made of dirt that only is good for bicycles versus these modular tracks are good for whatever the kid has to use.
Yeah, I think that was pretty. I think we made
Okay.
that
Okay. It just so often it just turns or it devolves into, oh, these dirt things. And I'm like, no. This would be something that whatever kid has can use. It could be wearing roller skates. You know?
Perfect.
Okay, good.
No,
Perfect.
I think
All
we're
right.
good there. Kristen.
If phase one is to be more of the, I'll call them lower impact sports, meaning it's less work to set them up. Are any of these sports trip that you've got planned on things where the town doesn't have to buy the equipment? Just because what I'm thinking is if the town buys the equipment, town maintains the equipment, then the town needs somebody to maintain that equipment. Could phase one be something where the town doesn't need to do any maintenance, or?
So I don't think it was a good question, Kristen. I don't think any of the equipment that we're buying, you know, take it cornhole games or you know, spike ball or whatever. I don't think any of that needs to really be maintained other than the fact that area needs to be mowed and needs to be weed whacked. And I did put in my report that Dave and Travis said they couldn't be doing that going forward. They don't have enough time. So that is a commitment that the town needs to make to a recreation area. And to take it a step further, since you guys are the Trails Committee, Dave Smith said he's not going to have time to maintain the trails. He's flat out, and somebody, you know, whether it's, you know, and I was told by somebody with good authority that the select board has been discussing a recreation director for budgeting next year. You know, they're going to have to figure out how they maintain your trails and maintain this property. And that's a big deal.
Just,
you know, go ahead.
I'm gonna hop in, Trip. So the select board has not been discussing a budget for that director. It is in the plan as a recommendation that we have someone focused specifically on that task. And it is.
No, that's I didn't say they were gonna. Yeah, I said that it was on the discussion table. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's coming down the road. We're not there yet. So I appreciate that. Okay, so we are, Sarah, go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate, I'm not trying to parse out, well, we could do this game is more popular or that. What I'm saying is I don't want to see us try to do this in 12 months. I want to spread it out. So however we need to figure that out, I'm fine with, but I am not in support of trying to get this all done in a 12-month period.
Can I ask you why, Sarah?
Because I think it's a lot of money, and I think that we need to test the waters as we go and see how this, how it will be received. We have perceptions of how it will be received, but we don't know for reality. I'd like to see activity there and then grow it as we see more activity, rather than try to put this all through at one time. It's 10% of the 1% money in the bank right now. So I think that's a big commitment from the town, which is fine. The town should make big commitments.
you're
But I
saying
want to
that-
see, let me finish, but I want to see it spaced out a little bit more. That's all I'm saying.
So Sarah, if we're talking the $250,000 is 10% of what the town has right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And keep in mind, so before you go forward, Trip, that 10% is in addition to money we had already planned the projects on Horace Hill, which is going to be pretty close to that number as well.
Okay. I would tell you on top of that, quite honestly, and, you know, doing it right, one of the most expensive things, Sarah, is going to be the landscaping. And that's trees being cut down. That is rock retainer walls being redone, things like that. So I'm not opposed to discussing phases, but I would tell you that if we do a crap job just to put a few things out there without making the place look good, you're losing the point of, wow, Dover's doing something really spectacular. And, you know, just to do it a little bit at a time is fine, but money is sitting there and it is 10%, but I really think that this is an opportunity for Dover to make a statement that, you know, we care about the people, we care about the businesses, and
I would argue that I'm not saying we don't.
Yeah, well,
okay, so
just put pickleball courts doesn't address getting all ages in there, and you know what I mean?
Right,
all right, let's not do the back.
I'm not going to have it going back and forth. I'm giving you my opinion. People don't have to agree with my opinion, but that's my opinion.
Okay, Patricia.
Okay.
Sorry, unmuting. Is there any way to put this like on a voting basis so that people can be like, let's do pickleball first, or we could do the logical thing first and then see, you know, what people really want. Because I like the pump jack thing, but it's like I agree with it needs to be done in phases.
So my concern with opening it up to a vote again is that we've already had this conversation, right? Like this is what we paid tens of whatever dollars for, you know, to get the Weston and Sampson plan taken care of, to tell us exactly what it is that we should be implementing. So I feel like putting it all out to a vote again is basically just reopening that conversation when, you know, we should just be taking the information we were giving and moving forward with it. Trip, the general consensus, it seems like, is that we're looking for more phases. Is that possible in your mind?
Yes. Again, I would, at the top of the list, the landscaping of the property. I don't know how many of you really are that familiar with it, but in order to use this property, we have to make it look nice. And there are, if you want to say safety things, there are. I think, you know, you don't dip your toe into this thing without doing the landscaping. That's, you know, the thing has to be set up to be a park before we do it. And that's, you know, that's $100,000 to do the landscaping. Okay. I will tell you, and I've said this to you, Eric, several times, I've talked to now over 100 people, businesses and people, and they love the concept of having an activity park. I don't have the answers to the design. You know, the input from others is what got us to where we are now. But if we don't get the property prepared, then, you know, throwing a game or two or just a pickleball court, which is only really going to value 30 or 40 people in the beginning, I think it's a mistake.
Mike.
I'm curious, how much of the old tennis court sort of stuff do you have to get rid of?
So that's a great question.
You can work with. Yeah.
So the two hard courts there, Mike,
Mhm.
are completely unusable. They'd have to be torn up by an excavator and leveled to pour concrete. And I can get into the weeds on concrete, but that's the surface we have to use there. There to the north, just to the north of that, those two hard courts are old andiron clay courts that are under 6 or so inches of grass. We can use asphalt there, which is obviously less expensive. And that's for the tennis and basketball stuff. But it's a day of excavating to prepare it for the surface to be poured. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was just curious about like that, my little modular pump track discussion was, whether or not that could be used on the surface that's existing. But I was curious about removing all the other parts too. Okay.
So that asphalt, go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just gonna say we're at a point where we need to, what is it the group is looking for? Are we looking for maybe a little more phasing to the project, and we'll take another look at it? Is that the general consensus? That's what I'm, Mike.
Well, I would suggest what Tripp is saying is, you need to start with, regardless of what you put there, you need to sort of prep the stage. And that's going to be the most important part, because once he does what he needs to do, he can create the blank canvas, remove all the stupid things that are there, and then he can add whatever elements in phases that we believe. But clearly, without the stage set for future use, it's kind of pointless, rather than, pick away at parts and say, well, I guess I'll just excavate this one court and then come back later to excavate the other court, So I think if Tripp wants to say, look, let's get the site ready and then I'll add stuff, whatever items make the most sense, that seems to be the direction to go in. I think we're all in support of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think in no way, shape, or form is it a question of support for this type of venue, right? Like we all know we need all of these things, that they're all in the report. I think it's more a question that Sarah brought up of, the budget we currently have, and, implementing every piece of it as quickly as possible when some people are feeling like there needs to be more of a phased approach to it. So I understand. Mike, go ahead.
Well, no, I'm saying, right, but exactly. It's not so much a phase kind of thing per se, but rather, I think you should be allowed to prepare the site for however we want to do it, rather than saying, let's just, phase one is completing or getting half the site ready. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Kristen.
I'm in agreement with Mike on that, get everything kind of ready. My only fear of having this project drag out, and I'm obviously I have no responsibility for the town employment or budget, but my only fear is the longer that we drag this thing out, it just, I kind of like a bigger bang approach, just because I think it creates a lot of hype. And I got to believe it's going to be used if that was the report that we got from the townspeople, that this is what they wanted. And we know how popular some of these sports are. I'd say if there was some way to get the money going, is not drag it out over an extended period of time. Plus you start losing contractors, you lose continuity. I don't know. I've always been a fan of let's keep it moving. That's just my opinion.
Patricia.
I totally agree. Go big. And it just, you gotta not do it all. And, obviously it's going to have to be in phases where you have to dig things out and make the infrastructure. But, if you find like 3 years down the line, like horseshoes aren't working, then, that can be phased out. Or.
And then, by the way, that's a $400 buy.
I love horseshoes, but I'm just
So
saying,
you're my
I just use
partner.
something as an example, to get the basic lay down, first, and then infrastructure.
Tuesday night horseshoes, Patricia.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm
Mike,
done.
real
Mix-
quick, and then we
mix
gotta
more
make a
gas.
decision here on.
No,
one.
what I was getting at is when they see the site being prepped, they're gonna know something's happening. And every time you add a thing, it provides another opportunity for the press, for an event. You know, this week we're bringing you horseshoes, boom, you know, or whatever it is you want to do. So I think the opportunity as you add to the recipe, it just provides more opportunity for press and enjoyment, and you could work it as you build it.
Okay, Julia. Oh,
Sorry, just one last quick point. Stamford, Connecticut did something very similar to this. And what they did was started with kind of the smaller activities like cornhole, and I think then they added a skating rink. They had kind of the low, once they did the landscaping and made it available, they had little benches that you could sit on. And same thing, they each time there was something new, they advertised it, it drew people in, they got corporate parties and weddings and things like that. And then what happened was they switched things out. So if they had the horseshoes, and then that became bocce ball, or so it's not like once something is in there, particularly something that's a lower cost add-on. I agree with Kristen and Patty that if we get the landscaping done, get that started, the pickleball, and then it can be something, a couple of cheaper things, badminton or whatever. That's
gotcha.
all.
And I thank you, Sarah. 1 second. I just want to say, like, so as I'm looking through the budget, right, there's some things like Trip that you had talked to me about, like things like a fountain, like those things in my head happen down the
Nope.
line, right? Like,
Yeah,
like this is,
absolutely.
you know, I understand everybody's concern for wanting to go big and get it implemented, I guess, but you know, there are certain pieces of this that in my mind just don't fiscally make sense for us to even consider
Absolutely.
at this point. Buying a gator for the property, not in the books, not on the cards right now. You know, buying a piece of equipment specific to this piece of property, I don't think is in the immediate plan, phase one. Okay, so just consider those things as well. You know, I think I don't want to cut corners. I'm just saying, you know, like, let's be realistic about the budget so that we're not just spending money to spend money. We want it to be done and done correctly, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we need it to be, you know, over the top and more expensive than it needs to be to begin with. I'm not trying to cut corners. That's not at all what I'm saying. I don't want to have to do it. I'd rather do it right once. Don't get me wrong. But I just want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible as well, because I and the select board are responsible for these dollars that have been collected by the businesses from our visitors. So like, we need to make sure that we're, you know, open and transparent and responsible in the way that we spend. That's my concern.
I don't disagree. And I will tell you a couple other things from the wish list of others. And this isn't how I went in, but the wish list from others, I'm probably 75,000 below where they'd like to see everything. I had a suggestion just today, not from you guys, that private funds could be raised through having fundraisers. For instance, the Hermitage Club would donate their thing and we could get private money. Randy Capitani put me in touch with Brian at Mount Snow, and I sent him an email and got a wonderful email back to him. And I'm meeting in with him on the 26th. So I do believe I can raise another 75,000 in other funds. And just addressing the gator quickly, somebody's got to pick up that equipment and not hand carry it throughout the thing.
Yeah, I get
so
that.
That was why buying a used gator, and maybe the town has something that we can use.
Gotcha. Okay, we got to move on a little bit here, just because.
one thing.
Mike, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to say, you know, this is still about the town buy-in, because once you build all this really groovy stuff, if this stuff goes to hell or it looks like it's, you know, sagging and, you know, looks like hell, you know, that will reflect that. So I'm just saying the town still needs to buy in.
Yep. Thank you, Mike. Sarah.
I want us to have the budget for the landscaping is about half the total cost. So I'd like to see that broken down a little bit more precisely by which elements, because yes, we don't want it to look like a piece of crap, but there's no reason we have to do all of the landscaping all at one time. If we can look at how that's being broken down, perhaps we can do sections of it. We can either do areas, or we can do one kind of lands, like do all the tree clearing, and we can do plantings. I don't think it has to be an all or nothing approach to the landscaping, just like I don't think it has to be an all or nothing approach to the thing. The other thing we're going to have is buy-in from the town for the annual maintenance costs. So we're going to have to itemize those pretty precisely, and we're going to have to get the town to vote in that to the budget.
And the lease.
And the lease has to be,
That-
I cannot go forward if we're not going to be protected in making all this investment in somebody else's land, and then they can sell it. We get right of first refusal, but we've already tripled the value of it. So, that
Right
needs to be accounted for.
Right at first refusal, which has as vacant land before the improvements and betterments, number one. Number two, Sarah, I have called Chris Cady 4 times and not gotten a return call. I can't do much without the town's attorney and having a conversation with him. I've asked Eric to have him call me, but I've got to get through the concept
What
phase.
point are you talking about with the town attorney?
The town attorney is the one that's going to be doing the lease with Rich Kaplan, I suspect.
Well, I think before we get the lease written, we need to get it in front of the select board.
Yeah, but you got to talk concept. If it's not possible, what's the point in going there to begin with? If we can't do a lease, what's the point? If Chris Cady says no, that will never work, then what's the point? That's all I'm looking for. Here's the concept. Could we write a lease that protects us? And for those of us that know Rich Kaplan well, he is willing to do anything. So I need an attorney of some ilk that knows something with the town to say, yes, I can put a lease together, protect the town completely, and make sure that we can buy it at any time based on the price when it had nothing on it. And we want first right of refusal.
Wait,
But I'm not an attorney, so.
The 171
It's
or
a
100
chunk-
guy?
so just to expedite this part of the conversation, it's a chunk of the northern piece of 171 and a chunk of the southern piece of the abutting.
Yeah,
property.
but it hasn't been approved?
So both of those are owned by Rich Kaplan.
Oh,
So
all right.
both lots
Sorry.
are owned by Rich Kaplan.
That should have been cleared from the beginning. This is done on a piece of leased property along Route 100 that we have a first right of refusal on. Okay, so Trip, if I'm speaking out of turn here, folks, please let me know. But I think what we're looking for is a breakdown of those landscaping costs. Okay, and then as far as the lease goes, I mean, we could have a preliminary conversation, I think, like with a lawyer, but like we're not going to spend any money to have,
I'm with
that.
you.
Okay.
I'm absolutely with you.
So,
But when he doesn't return a call, that's
okay. So we'll figure that piece of it out. Okay. But for right now, your homework would be to break down those landscaping costs to a little more specific a number so that we can look at those and get this thing moving in some type of direction. Okay. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay. So can you join us again next month, Trip?
I can. The only thing I will tell you is if we had made a decision, if I could have gotten in front of the select board, we'd save about $11,000 on the materials for the pickleball and tennis court.
I can't,
No, I understand. I understand.
handcuff and push forward based on somebody else's quotes. It's just not how,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I get it.
municipality, that's not how things go down,
I get it.
So that's the task for the upcoming month. And we will.
So broken out. So to be clear, and so we're not doing this again next month. Okay. I easily can break down the landscape constructions, landscaping costs. Okay, that's easy. And I agree that something like a fountain can be put off a year or two, whatever. Okay, that actually isn't a huge part of that deal. But is there anything else that is going to be thrown at me next month to put it off again?
No, I think, like I said earlier, I think just looking at those numbers and again, not trying to cut corners, but saying what do we need to get done in order to move the bulk of this project forward?
Well, I agree with Kristen and Patricia that we're going to cut trees down, okay, because we have to. The town, and I've worked with Travis, and there's stonework to do, and the courts have to be prepared. They have to dig up some turf to put the volleyball courts down. That is the extent of the landscaping.
Okay, so let's break that, just break the specific costs of those things down. We'll talk about it again next month and try to get it moving, okay?
Okay. Anybody else
Awesome.
have any other questions?
Yeah, Mike,
Yeah, sorry, it's about the lease here. It's just in your supporting material. It's just unclear, you know, with the 25-year lease for 6 months and a right of first refusal. So when that's ironed out, I think it'll put some people's minds at ease.
Well, again, Rich Kaplan and I have known each other for a long time, so we came up with that plan. Having said that, we both agree that lawyers have to give us the best way to write it up. And without being able to talk to a lawyer, it's hard to do.
No, I understand. I'm just saying in the supporting material, it's just, even that is confusing, you know, to somebody in real estate.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the
so
concept
we'll have
really
some more information together on that as well. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Trip. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work and for your enthusiasm on putting together these documents.
No worries. Yep.
Okay. I know we are past time. Garber, thanks for joining us tonight. Mike and I did have a sit down to talk about the potential of adding gates to multiple parts of Hathaway Trail. I think by the end of our conversation, Mike, we were talking a total of 5 gates. Am I correct?
The total has gone up to 7.
Okay.
A maximum of 7 gates, a minimum of 6.
Okay.
We did just come back from Tractor Supply, and we got a price of each gate of less than $500.
Oh,
so
okay.
So that's what we're looking at. The max total would be 7 gates, 500 a piece, $3,500. And if you want me to just quickly go through where the gates are, just so everybody has a good visual.
I think
can
for
do that
now,
in
just a
minute.
preliminary explanation so we know, and then we can put together even like a rudimentary map maybe for next meeting to get it, you know, kind of finalized. So go ahead and tell us where those are going to be. And then I just had a couple of quick comments on it, and we'll probably end up pushing the bulk of this conversation to the next meeting.
Okay, so it's as I said, 7 gates, 1 at the bottom of Hathaway Trail where the road meets the trail up by Mark's house. You have 2 more on each side of Johnson Hill Road. And then you have 3 going up Valley View. You have 1 at the Cheney Brook entrance where the curve is. You have another one about 100 feet below the parking lot that is on Valley View. And then you have another one north of that, 100 feet past the parking lot on Valley View, which is where the actual snowmobile trail crosses. That's your total of 6. We would add the 7th all the way out on the Wardsboro-Dover border, which is out on the 710 on our snowmobile trail. And that wouldn't even be put in until much later in the season. That's 7.
Gotcha. Okay. So my input to this conversation is that Andy had done some speaking with VLCT. Because this is technically a legal town trail, the select board does have the ability to shut down this trail with gates, you know, at their discretion. So what would need to happen is an ordinance would need to be put in place, basically stating that the select board has the authority to close these legal town trails, okay, at their discretion. From there, a policy would be made under that ordinance to state the gates would be closed from, you know, for an example, from this date to this date, and after a major rain event for this amount of time, at the discretion of the road crew or the road commissioner, should the select board choose them as the person who makes that decision. So there is a possibility of us moving forward with this and kind of addressing, you know, access to the trail from these wheeled vehicles. It's just there's some steps that would need to be taken. That's, Mike, honestly, great news that the gates we're looking at about $500. For some reason I was thinking much more than that. So you know, that's a reasonable cost in my mind, especially to end up saving us some money in the long run. Mike, I got you in a second. Let me just finish. You know, but there would definitely be some steps to be taken to make sure that we are legal beagle and, you know, get that ordinance in place and then the policies underneath it. Is that, Mike, before I get to you, I just want to ask the question, is that something that you want us to kind of continue to look into as a committee? I mean, is that something you think we should, you know, be
Are you
looking
talking about from the stump jumpers point of view?
well, yeah, I'm looking for committee members at this point.
Oh,
Mike?
no, I think that's an outstanding idea. My comment had more to do with like at Hogback where we have different right of ways and even legally, you know, property owners along these roadways, these class 4, whatever you want to call them, still have rights. And so what we were doing to address that was that landowners could have keys to the lock for their portion of the chain, just like you know, the town could have their key to their lock, the stump jumpers, etc. So there's ways to provide that security and still allow people who have legal access to get past the gate that you put up.
Well, that's the other part of it, right? Is in my conversations with Andy, you know, there are property owners out there and some camps and things that we would want to make sure that we, you know, are not blocking access to on a regular. I mean, that's their property, right? So we can't legally cut them off from it. So, like I said, there's plenty more of this conversation to be had. This is just the piece that Mike and I had prior to this meeting. That's why I asked him to come and just kind of give us an update on what he had found price-wise and where he was thinking those gates should go. And then, you know, we would have to definitely talk about that ordinance and how that all looks for our property owners and whatnot out there. I would really like to have them be a part of the conversation as well, so that they don't feel like we're making a decision and forcing it on them. I would also like to have our friends from the Wardsboro side be a part of the conversation because it does directly affect them as well. Sarah.
Mike, through other snowmobile organizations, are you aware of, or could you maybe research ordinances that have been put in place in other towns, and then we wouldn't necessarily be reinventing the wheel?
I can look into that, Sarah.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
not
just
a problem
figured
at all.
Mike might have the inside scoop with these
No,
guys.
not a problem at all. What I'll do is I'll just reach out directly to VLCT because they help to sculpt those ordinances most of the time. So they probably would have a pretty good idea of what it is that we would need to be looking at. And I definitely don't want to recreate the wheel. I just think we have that resource in VLCT. I can take advantage of it.
And if we're gonna do an ordinance, it's gonna get warned, and there's gonna be, you know, it will be made public, so we can just reach out to the affected parties, but it'll all be a public process.
Correct. Absolutely. Everything is public, open, and transparent. That's rule number 1 in my office. Matt, Nicholas.
Yeah, I think the gates are great. That's kind of where this conversation's been leading to. I feel like controlling the access to it, when we'll figure out who's in there, who's allowed in there, whatever, down the road, like you're saying with the ordinances. But it seems like the conversation's been steering toward gating the access into those trails.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not as if these gates restrict access to any user groups. It's just, you know, we need a mechanism to address the situation first, and we can make the policy as we're moving through it. So we'll keep the conversation moving forward. I will look into those potential ordinances. So what do we want to see for our action items on this by next month? So the potential ordinance, you know, I can get a more specific quote for gates if we want. Mike, have you put a number of these gates in? Like what are we talking for, like installation fees?
They're farm gates. So the reason we're trying to get this done by October is because we're going to have the machine up in Hathaway Trail, hopefully, right? So
I get that.
So the machine can easily poke in the posts and we can attach the gates. It's not a problem.
Okay. So I will look into those ordinances and what that entails. I will also look into contacting the property owners up there. Tricia, I see you. I'll get you. Hang on just 1 second. And then I will also get a more accurate quote together as to our cost. Do we need cement for those, Mike? I'll touch base with you on that later, actually. Okay, Patricia.
So the gates, are they going to be like actual gates or just like conduits that like make the water go underneath or,
No, like a farm gate, like a metal farm gate.
oh, so people actually need permission to go through.
Yes. And that's why
Oh,
I said
good.
like, the
Good.
bulk of this conversation needs to happen with those property owners as well, because we don't want them to feel as though we're forcing this decision on them. We just want to.
Oh, good, good.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions on that piece right now? I have my homework on that, and that's a lot, it seems like already. So if we're happy with that, I will move forward with that piece this month. And our next meeting is next month. August
I
9th.
motion
No, did you
to,
see I texted you. Hold on, no motions yet. We cannot have a meeting August 9th. It is the primary election. I just realized it on the calendar.
Okay.
I mean, you could, but I won't be there.
Why don't I send a doodle poll to the group? We okay with that? You know, possibly the next night, or, you know, we'll figure it out, but I'll send a doodle poll out to the group with some potential dates and make sure we hit a quorum and get that scheduled for next month. Does that work for everybody? Awesome.
Yes.
That was a quality hour and 15 minutes. I appreciate you guys' attendance and working through this stuff with us. It is not for naught. We will get things moving forward, I promise. So can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sarah makes
motion
a
to
motion.
adjourn the meeting.
Oh, I have a motion from Patricia, a second from Sarah. I will see you guys all next month.